With a name like Madness Beverage, what do you really expect? It's such a strange name that doesn't put you in any sort of mindset at all. You just think to yourself, what? But that's kind of exactly why I wanted to play it. You see, as someone who's an avid energy drink consumer, I figured there'd be nobody more qualified than I, a man who spends over $100 a month in Monster, to take a deep dive into this beverage-centric first-person shooter. And honestly, the game is far less bizarre than I'd anticipated.
My newly acquired powers, I was able to close the gate and become the most powerful being in the universe.
Powers? That's cheating. I will.
I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the storyline before we get too far into things because it doesn't really have a huge overbearing effect on the game itself, but it sort of just gives you a reason to be there. So you play as Caleb, a space pirate who intercepts a transmission from Manos, a large purple alien that's kind of reminiscent of the old kid show But Ugly Martians, who's closed the gates of hell so you could control all demons. Kind of a weird concept, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to close the gates of hell. You'd think you'd open them up to bring demons to this world, but sure, go off. Anyway, during this broadcast, he claims that he's freed people from the grips of death, and that death is just the beginning of a demonic afterlife. What this all really boils down to is just that Manos is trying to take over the universe by killing everybody and turning them into demons. Obviously, this isn't good for business, so despite being a bad guy, our main character, Caleb, steps up to the plate to save the universe. And then you go to Neo Valkyria Castle, which is the first level and sort of acts as a tutorial, but it doesn't really teach you a whole lot. It just throws you in there and lets you figure it out on your own. And at the end of this first mission, you confront Manos and engage him in your first boss battle. Despite the fight looking like it's going in your favor and you're about to win, the cutscene interrupts the battle that says you lost, where Manos reveals that he's been sponsored by G Fuel and is far too powerful to be beaten.
What the fuck?
After being beaten, you retreat back to your ship to go off and meet a friend named Zeos at a local space station to gather intel on exactly what Manos was drinking.
What the fuck you doing here? Haven't seen you in years, Caleb.
Zeos explains to you what a madness beverage is and that there are different kinds that give you different powers. However, in order to get these beverages, you need to collect madness drops in various locations that give power to the drinks. From this point on, you're free to collect these drops in any order that you'd like. Your space station acts as a hub where you can swap out your weapon loadouts and drinks and select the next location you'd like to travel to. While each mission is uniquely decorated, they mostly play out the exact same way. You arrive, you walk some, you get locked in a room or arena and have to fight a swarm of demons in order to unlock a door. It's a bit reminiscent of Serious Sam in the way that progression is locked behind killing enemies, but without the large scale that made that series so popular. Beyond these arenas, you typically have to find buttons to open up pathways, kill more demons wandering about, and eventually collect a madness drop. Then travel back to Zeos at the space station so he can make you a new madness beverage and repeat. The locations vary in difficulty and quality. While some locations like the Alien Planet and Secret Lab look decent and have good layouts, others are not as well done. The underground caves, for instance, look like more of a copy-paste of Unity asset rocks than an actual cave, with many rocks clipping into each other and strange lighting glitches in certain areas that make your gun and enemies light up red. Then you have what I consider to be one of the worst levels in any FPS recently, this Russian Snowlands level. This level is just bad from start to finish, from the thin docks you start on where you have nearly no room to dodge, to the tight caves that have pitch black walls for some reason, to the annoying platform sections that are never seen in the game again beyond this point, plus the lack of equipment making the middle section of this level a complete and utter nightmare. You have 3 back-to-back arenas where you have to kill every enemy in the area to open up the exit to the next, and the entire time you'll struggle with very little ammo supply. I made the mistake of attempting hard first, which was fine up until this level where I simply couldn't kill all of the enemies because I'd run out of ammo every time. I figured maybe they just turned down the drop rate for hard difficulty, and I decided to restart on easy just so that I wouldn't have to worry about this problem happening again. However, even on easy the ammo was very rare, and I managed to just have enough to get through it. Even after all that, it has another section of caves that ends with a very random boss battle against a random dude. It's just not a very fun level, and the fact that it uses mechanics you don't see again like the platforming is strange, but honestly just a relief since the platforming is so painfully bad. You have far too much in-air control, making it really easy to overcorrect and fall to your death. I will give credit where credit is due though. Not every level is bad. In fact, the Secret Labs mission actually looks pretty good, and while the corridors seem fairly generic, at least the layout of the mission is fun, rather than tedious and annoying. And the lava caves are quite nice too, though it's a very short level, but at least the boss fight is actually cool rather than just some random dude. And the alien level is actually pretty great. I mean, it's a unique landscape that I haven't seen in any other shooters really, and they did a great job being creative with it. Though I do wish it was a little less barren, And I do think that it's kind of a weird level considering like it's such a demon focused game, so where are these aliens from? And the only aliens you see are these worm creatures that emerge from the ground when you get near them, similar to like the Half-Life 2 bug aliens. The gunplay can be pretty hit or miss, especially with some of the weapons being far less powerful than they really should be. Take for instance the shotgun. Usually you'd expect a shotgun to be incredibly deadly in close quarters. However, this specific shotgun, which by the way also happens to fire 4 shots at the same time, is fairly underpowered. Aside from the basic shambling demons, most of the enemies will take 2 to 4 point blank shots to kill. Also consider that this is a pump action shotgun, so there's a delay between each shot. This is so unsatisfying to use, and it's better off just staying in the weapons case. That's probably a bit more disappointing to me than most other people because I tend to prefer shotguns in FPS games as I find them to be some of the most satisfying weapons to use, but unfortunately this one just isn't. On the topic of weapons, there's a pretty impressive variety. Your main workhorse gun will be the first one you get, aptly named the assault rifle. It fires plasma energy rather than typical bullets, but it works the same way you'd expect it to. The reason it's so handy is simply because of its large ammo capacity and excess of ammo waiting to be picked up. While its power is a bit underwhelming, the gun is heavily reliable and a safe bet for every mission. Other noteworthy weapons include the force gun, which is a powerful rifle type that shoots a blast of what I assume is highly pressured air. It can knock some of the medium tier enemies down, allowing you to pick them off with melee, the only time that melee is actually useful in the whole game. It'll usually just get you killed because the animation is slower than the demon's melee. You also have the small fucking gun, which is a shockingly powerful pistol that shoots bouncing bullets that are green. And fair play, this is a nice obvious reference to Doom. Then there's your typical rocket launcher, standard in any old school style shooter. I didn't notice just how overpowered this thing was until I went into Coliseum mode and just wow. It decimates demons so quickly that even Garcia Hotspur would be proud.
Like what you see? Que magnifico.
There's also a sniper rifle, but the less said about that thing, the better. However, even with the weapon variety, the game still feels monotonous. There's very little variety in the enemy design. You'll be killing the same enemies in the third mission that you will in the last, with the only additional enemies being those worms we talked about that come from the alien level. And that's about the most unique enemy in the game. Everything else does one of two things. Either runs towards you and tries to hit you with melee, or shoots fireballs at you. Look, I get it, they're demons, their whole personality's fire. You'll find more variation in a Starbucks the first day they bring back pumpkin spice than in hell. But even in 93, they found ways to make demons more interesting in Doom than Madness Beverage brings to the table. It doesn't help that again, every mission has the same structure of go from point A to point B. Every other room you'll be locked in and have to kill every demon that spawns in order for the door to unlock, so that you can continue into the next area and repeat. Then the few times they do try to change it up wind up just being worse, like the platforming or the puzzle they added at the end of the secret lab mission that I'd hardly even consider a puzzle. Look, I'm not trying to shit all over this game. It's obvious that the team that made it did try. Some of the level designs are actually pretty impressive, and some of the weapon designs are pretty nice too, and while the voice acting is a bit cringeworthy, it's in that kind of enjoyable B-movie style that's totally likable and forgivable. Though what's not forgivable is the horrid mixing on Manos that makes him incredibly hard to hear at some points, especially as the music blasts loudly over the cutscenes. This makes the choice of not including an option for subtitles even more mind-boggling, as I can't imagine no one noticed this while playtesting.
We both know you're one sick psycho that wants to rule the universe.
Psychopath, eh? Don't you mean that you thought you single-handedly changed the rules of the universe? Don't tell me this doesn't impress you.
I don't care. It's never a good sign to have this much power, and it's bad for business.
But I can't help but feel like this game just isn't that good. The enemy design is ugly and not in that, well, it's a demon kind of way. I mean, it just doesn't look good. Some design choices are questionable, like why is there no toggle option for sprinting or crouching? Both of these are a pain in the ass to hold down, especially crouching as it's the B button, which makes it impossible to aim while crouching. And why is the jump so short? Not much of a point in using it when you can't get onto most objects in the game anyway. But worst offense of all is just that it's boring. I feel like I'm missing something though. Like the whole reason I wanted to play this game in the first place. It's on the tip of my tongue and I can taste the word. Oh yeah, the beverages. The thing that was meant to be its unique mechanic to set it apart from other indie FPS games. Unfortunately, they just didn't have much of an effect on gameplay. And aside from the purple one, they really weren't very useful. Just like the melee and using grenades, the animation to take a drink just takes too long to be useful in dire scenarios, making it something that you have to plan, but some of them don't last long enough to plan ahead for. I honestly stopped using them beyond testing a new one at least once when I got them. For being these really powerful drinks, I would have expected them to be a little more useful. Also, some of them, like the blue one, have such negatives to them that they make them a detriment. At the very least, I can respect that they called them by color instead of fake flavor names like Arctic Mountain. Like, what the fuck does that taste like, Gatorade? I would have preferred these drinks to have a little more impact on gameplay. Like, a lot of their effects just simply aren't that strong for the negatives that they give. And I just feel like they could have done a lot more with this. Like, they could have had a drink that gives you the ability to fire fireballs back at the enemies, or a reflective shield, or something like that, instead of just being these basic, like, little stat boosts that also come with negative stats on top of it. Or the weird green one that just teleports you into an arena 40% of the time, and then you have to kill all the enemies in a smaller place. It's just kind of weird. In the end, I can't recommend Madness Beverage. Perhaps if it was a $10 game, I could let it slide for being a weird meme game that can bring some fun through its very short campaign, but at nearly $20, it's too steep for the lack of content and amount of mechanics that simply aren't useful. It doesn't help that the only other content in the game is unlocked after beating it, called Coliseum mode, which just puts you in a tiny arena doing the same thing you already did in campaign, just killing enemies, but now it's 100 waves. If you're really desperate, wait for a sale, but otherwise skip it, it's not worth your time. And that was my thoughts on the game. Honestly, like I said earlier in the review, it was far less bizarre than I anticipated. There really wasn't a whole lot to it. It was really short. It didn't offer a whole lot of variety. It's just a run-of-the-mill campaign shooter.